Hello everyone, Reginald Scott here. Welcome to the video. Great to see you all again, and thank you for clicking on the video today. Now today I want to talk about bike helmets, specifically those for road bikes or road bike users, and give you my opinions and experience on selecting a good road bike helmet, both from my many years of riding bicycles myself and also the fact that I happen to sell bicycle helmets as part of my living. So the helmets I have in today's video are all from the company BBB, but of course there are other helmets available on the market from other brands. So what I'm going to tell you today is not really specific to BBB, but can apply to a variety of helmets out there. And this is not a sponsored video. BBB haven't told me to make this video or paid me to make this video. I guess this video is sponsored by me because all these helmets belong to me. They're all my shop stock or my own personal helmet as well. So just wanted to go through a few tips and ideas of what you should be looking for when you buy a helmet, what sort of helmet is good in what situation. If you have any thoughts, ideas, or experiences you want to share, please do leave it in the comments below, and I will of course get back to you. And don't forget, sometimes you know something that other people don't, and if you can give that advice, you help everybody here. So that's fantastic. Thank you very much. There are basically three different kinds of bicycle helmets for road bike users. The two most common ones are what I would call a climbing helmet and an aero helmet. And then really aero helmets are divided into two separate categories. There's the aero helmets that you get for time trial bikes, so people who are doing triathlon or time trial, and they are very, very aerodynamic helmets, often look like teardrop shapes. Some of them are very elongated. And they generally have very, very few vents, and sometimes they come with large screens or visors on them, again, for aerodynamics. Those sort of helmets most road cyclists don't use because they are very specific to a particular type of sport, which is time trial or triathlon. So the two major types we're going to be talking about today are sort of road aero helmets and road climbing helmets. So these two helmets are going to represent our climbing helmet and our more aero helmet, okay? Again, there are lots of options out there, lots of different designs and styles, but these two is basically what you're going to be looking at when you select a bicycle helmet. I've used one like this for many, many years. I used this kind of helmet when I was commuting and riding in the UK, and more recently I got myself an aero helmet like this one in Brunei. I've been using this one now for 2 or 3 years, I think at least. So what's the differences? Why might you go for one of these rather than one of these and vice versa? Right, generally speaking, with the more climbing orientated helmets, they're going to have better ventilation. Better ventilation means your head will keep fresh and cool for longer when you are in a hotter climate. And the fact that there's more air here than material means that this is going to absorb less sunlight and get less hot. It's also going to vent the heat more easily, and it's also going to be lighter. So this is actually more comfortable to wear. If you're looking for maximum comfort, a climbing helmet like this is the best option to go for because you're going to notice it on your head less because it's lighter, and because it's better vented, it's just going to be more comfortable on a hot, sunny day. An aero helmet like this is more compact, slightly narrower, as you can see. I don't know if you can see that one is slightly narrower than the other. The aero helmet is slightly narrower. It presents less of a barrier to the air, and it has fewer vents. Now, you can get some aero helmets on the market for road bike that have very few vents. There are some that only have like one single vent in the front, for example, or two very narrow vents across the front. This one is quite well ventilated for an aero style helmet, so it's kind of the best of both worlds. Master of none sort of thing, but it's heavier because there's more material there, okay? It's about 70 grams to 100 grams heavier than a climbing helmet, so you're going to notice that weight on your head more when you're riding for longer, and if you're climbing, obviously it's going to impact your performance to some extent, however little that is going to be. And the other thing is this is going to get hotter. It's going to get hotter from not only solar radiation absorption, but also because you've got less ports for you to vent that warm air that's building up next to your head. Because one of the places that the human body loses heat the most through is your head. Obviously, heat rises, most of it comes out the top of your head. So when you put a hat on, you trap a lot of that heat against your head. And if you have a hat with less vents, you're going to trap more of that heat against your head. Now, I've definitely noticed that at lower speeds, this one is a warmer helmet to wear. Okay? And I would also say that if you live somewhere cold, like the UK, where I used to live, then helmets like this during the winter can get very cold indeed because they are so well ventilated. So you end up having to wear a cap or a hat or some kind of woolly hat or something under your helmet, or grow your hair really long to compensate for the fact that you've got so many vents. If you go for an aero helmet with very few vents in it, less than this perhaps, then that's actually going to insulate your head better if you live in a colder climate. So you can see now there's some big differences. If you're commuting, I would generally tend to go for one of these because they are lighter, because they're more comfortable, because it's quite versatile. If it is a hot day and you're riding to work, you don't particularly want to get all sweaty, so it's good to have a nice well-vented helmet. And if you've got to carry your helmet with you all day after you arrive at your destination, which I used to have to do when I was at college and university, I had a rucksack and I would put my helmet in my rucksack or clip it to the back. And so I'd be carrying it around all day long. It was better to have a lightweight helmet like this one than a heavy helmet like this that is only really advantageous at high speeds, okay? That's the other thing. If you cycle slowly, again, you're a commuter, and you're not going particularly quickly, this is a good helmet to have, okay? If you're going really, really fast and every second matters to you, then this might be a better option. I mean, I'm assuming that while you're commuting, you're not going as fast as possible, but maybe you are, and so maybe this would be a good option, okay? But the next most important factor is color. Now, color is not just style. There is a lot to say about when you come to choosing a bicycle helmet based on color. Okay, now there are a lot of people out there who opt for a black helmet. And the reason why they opt for a black helmet, generally speaking, is because of style. Because a black helmet looks cool. You know, Darth Vader, all that stuff, right? Black is just cool. So that is the main reason why people go for a black helmet. Now, I have in the past had a black helmet, and I regretted that choice very quickly, especially living here in Brunei, and ended up selling it secondhand not so long after having it new. And the main reason for that was heat. A black helmet absorbs a lot more heat than other colors, especially versus white or fluoro. Okay, so generally speaking, I wouldn't advise for a black helmet if you live in a hot country, because your head will get significantly hotter. And here's the thing: the black helmet that I had was was a vented helmet like this. It was a climbing helmet. It was actually this model of helmet that I had in black, and I noticed it was significantly hotter than the Maestro Aero helmet in white, which is what I have now. So if you choose a black helmet, your head will get hotter. It's guaranteed. It just absorbs more solar radiation and it just gets hotter. But there's another important reason not to choose a black helmet, and that is safety. If you're riding in early morning or evening or nighttime, pretty much any time of the day, black is absolutely the worst color you can choose because it simply doesn't show up. And what's interesting about your bicycle helmet is because it fits on top of your head, it is the highest point of your silhouette, of your image, right, as a driver comes up to you. And the drivers sometimes sit quite high in their vehicles. They could be in a truck or they could be in a 4x4, sitting quite high. And so one of the most prominent things sticking out to them is going to be your head, because it's the thing that's on most at their eye level if they're in a taller vehicle. So if you have a black helmet, you're making yourself really invisible to those kind of drivers. Now, I stock black helmets because some of my customers demand that they have to have black because everything else on their bike is black. They want to ride around like a ninja. I don't approve of it. I don't think it's a good idea, and I tell them so, but sometimes they still go for black. Okay, so me personally, I would never buy a black helmet again. From a safety perspective, it's the worst color for visibility, and from a heat retention perspective, it's the worst color as well. Also, if you scratch it, it shows up. So there you go. Black helmets, not a good idea. What is better? So this one is actually my helmet. I've got a white helmet here. I have the Maestro in white, and here is a fluoro one. You can also get fluoro orange and other colors like that, but we're just going to represent with this fluoro yellow for the moment. I think these are the two best options for helmets for sure. Okay. Now, white is a great option if you live in a hot country. I'm going to show you a video clip now from a ride that I did a couple of days ago. And as you can see in this ride, everybody riding in Brunei is wearing a white helmet, pretty much. Now, obviously, when we do a race and stuff, there are some people wearing fluoro, there's some people wearing black and red and all different colors, green. But the majority of riders in Brunei go white. The reason they go white is because of the sun. It just gets really hot here on a sunny day, and white is absolutely the best color for reflecting that sunlight. And the other thing, of course, is when the sunlight hits a white helmet like this, it really shows up, and it makes it very obvious for drivers coming up behind you or drivers approaching you that you're there, because a white helmet is very distinctive. You can see it from a long way away. The other thing about a white helmet as well is it's the most visible color at night. All right. So if you ride in the daytime, it's pretty visible. Maybe not on a cloudy day, or a foggy day, it's not so good, but it's generally quite visible in clear conditions. And at night, it's the most visible color.
There seems to be some debate on this subject. I found this chart online that disagrees with my assertion that white is the most visible. And I read some articles that also say different colors. So let's see if we can do an experiment. Okay, to answer the question of which is more visible, I've got two bike helmets in this cupboard under the stairs here. One is fluoro, one is white. We're going to see which one you can see more easily. I'm about to turn on a bike light, and we'll see which one shows up. There we go. So there's the white one down there, and the fluoro one. I'm going to reduce the light on this bike light. This is full beam. There's flash. There we go. So that's low light, medium light, high. So there you go. The fluoro one does stand out really well, but so does the white. I'll let you decide which you think is better. Personally, I find the white one easier to spot at night than the fluoro helmet. But, you know, I could be wrong about that. So there you go.
Okay, now me, I've actually stuck fluoro reflectors on the back of my helmet. There's just some reflective tape that I bought. And so if a car light hits this, I've got these little reflectors on the back as well. They did not come with the helmet. I stuck them on after, and they become bleached by the sunlight here, but they were originally this color. That's the other thing, of course. If you buy a helmet like this, eventually it will change color. It will become more bleached, more pale. White just generally stays white. So like black helmets generally stay black. These fluoro colors do tend to fade with age the more you use them. Generally speaking, I don't know about the BBB ones, but I have seen faded fluoro color helmets elsewhere. So the other thing about this is, this one is absolutely the best color if you travel in the day. And if you're somebody who rides in heavy traffic, this is a great color. Okay, you want to be as visible as possible. This is why roadside workers wear these kind of colors, these fluoro colors. They're the most distinctive colors in the daylight. So reflectors for night, or white, and fluoro for the daytime. So what you could do is you could just stick reflectors on the back of this, white reflectors, and so when you ride at night, you'll be safe as well, and you would have the best, most visible helmet during the daytime. White is a close second. Okay, this also is going to reflect sunlight better than a black helmet. This actually has some black on it, just like this one, but the top part here is quite bright and shiny. So this is going to do a better job at keeping your head cool than a black helmet, but again, not quite as good as white. So those are your decisions. Generally, I would say if you're a commuter, you ride in big cities, heavy traffic, go for this color because you're generally going to be riding in daylight hours if you're commuting, and drivers need to see you. If you're a cyclist who rides long distance, or you're training, or you're touring, I'd probably go for a white one because sometimes you might ride through the night, and also because you'll be out in the sun all day long, you want something to keep your head a bit cooler. If you're touring as well, of course, I would advise one of these kind of helmets, the more vented helmet. An aero helmet's probably not the best option if you're touring, unless, of course, you tour in cold conditions, when then the less vents might be advantageous to you. So a few more points about bike helmets before I move on to talking about safety, and that is fitting. Fitting is really important. Generally, helmets come in 3 sizes, small, medium, and large, and those are to accommodate different head sizes. Now, I don't know whether you know this, but I learned this when I came to Asia. Different races of people have different shaped heads. Yeah, it's true. Don't know whether phrenology is true, but that is a fact. Different races have different shaped heads on general terms. So what I found was that Western brand helmets, which are made for the Western market, do not fit the heads of local Malay Asians here in Brunei, as well as helmets that are specifically made for the Asian market, okay? And the reason for that is Western people have quite narrow heads. We're quite aerodynamic. Our heads are quite flat down the sides and quite pointed at the front. So the Western-made helmets tend to accommodate those kind of heads best. The Asians, the Malays anyway, that I'm dealing with here in Brunei mostly, have got wider heads on the side, okay? Narrow at the front, wider on the side. So they find some Western design helmets quite uncomfortable and basically impossible to wear. It gives them headaches because it presses too much on the side of their head. So what I would say is, depending on where you are from in the world, you might want to check the fit of the helmet. The best thing to do is obviously try it in a shop, but if you try it in a shop and it fits, please buy it in the shop. Bit of a, not a good move to go in the shop, try it, and then buy it online, right? So if they've given you that service of allowing you to try the product before you buy, then please support that business and do the right thing and buy from them. A lot of companies now, a bit like shoe sizing, so shoes you get narrow and wide fit, right? Like say, same with helmets, you'll have different head size shapes of helmet depending on where you are in the world. So like I say, the ones made for the Asian market tend to be wider on the sides, the ones for the Western market tend to be slightly narrower. How do you know if a helmet actually fits you? Well, there's a few different things you can work out. Firstly, is it comfortable when you put it on? Do you feel any pressure on your head? If you can feel that the helmet is pinching your head, or you can feel something pressing against your skin or your skull, it's probably not the right helmet for you. If you can adjust it at the back, this one comes with a little barrel adjuster here that you can just turn, a little wheel that closes off the webbing in the helmet. If you've already turned that and you've loosened it, and you've got it as loose as you can, and then you've tightened it until it feels about right, but you've still got pressure on your head somewhere, then again, it's probably not the right helmet. There is a test you can do, okay? So pop the helmet on, tighten the wheel at the back till it sort of feels snug, but not overly tight. Don't do up the chin strap yet. What you do is you put your hands out in front of you like this, ready to catch the helmet, and then you just tip your head forward like this. And if it's the right size helmet, it should stay on your head, which this one is. This is a medium, and this is the helmet that I actually use. This is the size I use. And as you can see, even though it's not strapped onto my head, it didn't fall off. It stayed on. So that is how you tell if a helmet is a good fit, generally speaking. Now, the straps. These usually come a bit longer than they need to be. So you're more than entitled to cut them off once you've got them to the right size. Just make sure that you've measured it to the right chin size before you cut them. What I do is I cut them with scissors, and then I use a lighter to burn the ends, because these are usually made of nylon or something, plastic, and it just seals them off so you don't get frayed edges. So I snip it, and then I heat the end to make a little seal on the end of the strap. These pieces here should be just below your ears. Okay, they shouldn't be pushing up against your ears. They should just be slightly under your ear. Okay, pulled up to the side. And the chin strap should be under your chin and as tight that you can still fit 2 fingers in there, right? So take 2 fingers and shove it under your chin strap. And if you can get your 2 fingers under your strap without too much trouble, then that's about right. Okay, you don't want it choking you right under your neck, because you won't be able to breathe properly and it'll be uncomfortable. Just 2 fingers in the strap. If you can get those 2 fingers in, that's perfect. That's about right. Obviously, you don't want it too loose. It's really important to have a well-fitting helmet, not only for comfort, but also if you do fall, you want it to protect your head. You want it to stay on your head and not move around too much during the impact. All helmets come with pads inside them. This is for comfort, okay, in the helmet. It's also there for safety as well. Adds a bit of cushioning from impact. These pads are usually held in by Velcro. And after every one of my rides, every time I go riding and I return home, I pull out the pad, like that. It's easy to do, just pull it. And I rinse this. Usually I use a bit of dish soap and I squeeze it out and I make it foamy. I rinse it out and then I leave it to dry next to my helmet. And in the morning, I put the pad back in. It sounds like a lot of work, especially for a pad like this. Some other pads are a bit more simple than this kind of design. But if you don't do that, what you will find is that not only do this start to harbor smelly bacteria, which starts to stink after a while, but you'll also start to get spots across the top of your head, because your head is constantly, if you're using your helmet every day, your head is constantly against all that bacteria pressed against your head. So you'll get acne and spots across your head, which is really horrible. It'll be extremely unhygienic, and these things will deteriorate quickly because all the acids in your skin and all the bacteria start to break down the material, the pad material, and you'll end up having a pad falling apart on you prematurely. Like I say, I've had my helmet now for a few years and my pad is still absolutely fine. My pad isn't with me right now, it's actually drying as we speak. So rinse out your pads after every ride. You don't have to wash the helmet after every ride, but you can. I just stick it under the tap, wipe it down with my hand. That's all you really need to do. But the pad, it's important to either disinfect it, minimum rinse it, and I like to rinse with a bit of soap and just squeeze it out. Makes it nice and fresh for the next usage. And if you keep doing that, like I say, these things last forever. They really do last years and years and years. So there you go. There's your helmet maintenance. Keep your helmet dry, of course, when you've washed it and rinsed it. Put it somewhere where it can dry. Don't keep it in a plastic bag or inside some kind of box where it's going to sweat and get all stinky. And if you do all of that, it should be absolutely fine. So there you go. That's my advice for helmet maintenance. Right, final thing, safety. So this helmet here looks very similar to this helmet here. They are both Maestro helmets from BBB. You can see this one's a slightly different color. That is actually intentional. This has been manufactured at a different time to this one. This one is more glossy. This one is more of a matte. And as you can see, the coloring is slightly different on helmets. So this is the latest version of this one. You can still buy this one. This is the latest version. And this is the MIPS edition. Okay, so we're going to talk about safety now and MIPS. First off, a note on safety. There are some people out there who say it is not necessary to wear a bicycle helmet, and that they say things like bicycle helmets discourage people from cycling and so on and so forth. I couldn't care less about that. I really think it's a good idea to wear a helmet. I encourage everybody to wear a helmet. And I'll give you the reasons why. Number one, they look cool. I actually think you look better wearing a helmet on a bicycle than not wearing a helmet. I think helmets are cool. I mean, look at this thing. It looks awesome. I really like to see myself and other riders in a bike helmet. I think it looks good. I think if I rode around with my just hair out in the wind, I think it would look just a bit rubbish. It wouldn't match what I am, which is a road cyclist. So I like my helmet. My helmet looks cool. Number two is some people say that, they cite studies where helmets don't save your head in an accident or say that you're still going to die if you're in a car crash, blah, 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 whatever. No, helmets do offer protection. How do I know that? Because for literally thousands of years, one of the most important pieces of equipment any soldier has ever had is a helmet. And when you give soldiers helmets, their chances of survival go up massively. All right, so that's one point. Number two, every professional sport, okay, motor racing, motorcycling, they all wear helmets. If they didn't help, they wouldn't wear them. And finally, very simple test you can do at home if you're one of these anti-helmet people. What I suggest you do is lower your head down like this, okay, and then run at a wall. See how fast you can go, like 20 kilometers an hour, 30 kilometers an hour, if you can manage 30 kilometers an hour. You probably can't, but whatever, as fast as you can. And then run into the wall with your head, all right? It's going to be very painful, guarantee it. Now, put a helmet on and do the same test. And I guarantee you're going to come away better with the helmet. It might still hurt, but hitting your head against the wall with a helmet on is going to hurt less than no helmet at all. And that essentially is the entire argument. If you fall off a bicycle, and I'm talking fall, I'm not talking get hit by a truck. If you fall off a bicycle, you're much more likely to survive if you're wearing a helmet than if you don't. So it's that simple. Wear a helmet. Okay, next, let's talk specifically about MIPS. Okay, let's talk about the MIPS system. So this is a MIPS helmet, and it looks very similar to the standard BBB Maestro helmet. But in this helmet is incorporated a safety system. This is a patented safety system from another company which sells this same safety system to a lot of different brands of helmet manufacturers. Okay, so this is not something special to BBB. A lot of helmet manufacturers have it. And essentially what it is the webbing for the helmet is on an elasticated base or a set of elasticated anchors. And what that means is the helmet can shift around on top of your head within the webbing. Okay, so once the helmet's tight on your head and fixed in place, the helmet has a certain level of extra movement to it. And the theory behind this is that when you fall and strike against an object, this allows the helmet to rock slightly or move slightly on that elasticated set of anchors on the webbing. And that somehow reduces the impact. It basically lessens the impact on the brain, supposedly, and makes the helmet safer. Does it work? Studies done in a lab, possibly funded by the company, say that it works. I couldn't honestly tell you if it's true or not. You would have to ask somebody who'd been in a car accident wearing the MIPS system. The MIPS system does cost you additional money. So if you buy the standard Maestro helmet, it's around $200. The one with the MIPS system, I think, is around 250, 240, something like that, off the top of my head. I'll stick the prices below, with and without MIPS, so you get an idea of what you're paying extra. The MIPS system adds weight to the helmet. So this helmet is about 60, 70 grams heavier than the standard helmet. Okay, so the aero helmet is already slightly heavier than the climbing helmet by about 70 grams, 60, 70 grams. And then you add another 60, 70 grams for the MIPS system. So you get a much heavier helmet. You've got to bear that in mind with the kind of riding you're doing. It could just be a little bit of marketing, and maybe it's a bit clever on, it's a bit like BOA, right? Almost all shoes now come with a BOA dial. BOA is the company that manufactures the dials, and they've found a way to make their product so in such high demand that if your shoes or your shoe brand doesn't come with a BOA closure system, it's somehow inferior to others. MIPS have pretty much done the same thing for helmets. They put their design into bike helmets and made it so now if you go out and buy a bike helmet and they don't have the MIPS system, it's like a black mark against the brand name. So there you go. That is MIPS. Not really much more to say about it. Here it is. You can see in here, these yellow things here are the little elastics that the helmet webbing is fixed to. And as you can see, it can kind of move around on those elastics there. So that's all it is. And that's what you pay your extra money for. Just a final word on safety, and this is to do with safety standards. Okay, so you have different safety ratings or safety standards around the world. There's an American standard for bicycle helmet safety, there's a European standard, and there's an Australian standard as far as I'm aware. Those are the three that I know of. I don't think there are any others. So all helmets, all proper bicycle helmets in the world should meet one of those three, okay? They're actually quite dramatically different. So if you buy a bicycle helmet in the US or in Europe, a BBB one exactly the same as this, it will actually be slightly lighter than this one I'm holding here. And the reason for that is the European ones and the US ones are more flimsy and less well built in a way than the Australian ones. And there's a very important reason for that. In Australia, it's a legal requirement to wear a bicycle helmet. So therefore, their helmets have to meet a much higher standard in order for the government to have the authority to force everybody to wear them in a way, right? So what they're saying is, we're going to make everybody wear a bicycle helmet, and it's the law, then the helmet should meet a pretty strict standard. Okay, that is why in Australia the helmets are built different. In Europe and the US, it is not a legal requirement, and I mean, I'm not sure, depending on your state in the US, maybe it is, but I don't think it is. It's not a legal requirement to wear a helmet. So therefore, helmets can be made a bit lighter and a bit less robust. So in order to get that safety standard in the US or Europe, what they do is they take one helmet, like this one, BBB helmet, they put it on their safety rig in the lab or in the testing center, like a fake dummy head, basically, and that usually has some kind of set of electronic sensors in it. And then they do impact tests on it. They might do one from the top, from the side, from the front, and they have, I think, about 5 or 6 impact tests that they do on that helmet, right? But the difference between the Australian standard and the US and European standard is the European and the US standard, every time they do an impact test on the helmet, they check the helmet after the impact test. So say they did a side impact test on the right-hand side of the helmet, they'll smack the helmet, they'll check it out, they'll say, did it pass, did it fail? If it passed, they'll put that one helmet to the side, they'll grab a fresh helmet, they'll put it on the machine again, and they'll do an impact from a different direction. So they'll do the second test. Every single test, fresh helmet. With the Australian standard, they use the same helmet. So they impact test the same helmet from 5 or 6 different directions, and they beat the hell out of it. And if it fails at any stage within that test, even if it fails at the 5th one, even though it's received already 4 knocks, 4 serious knocks, if it fails at any point, it didn't pass. It doesn't meet the requirement. So that is why the Australian helmets are safer in theory than the European and the American ones. Makes them a little bit heavier, which I hate, being a weight weenie, but I like the idea of the helmet having gone through a much more rigorous standard, because like I say, in Australia it's the law to wear a helmet, and coincidentally it's actually the law to wear a bicycle helmet in Brunei as well. So there you go, there's a little bit of information you might have not known. about the different safety standards. There you go. So that is pretty much everything I can tell you about bicycle helmets, and hopefully it helps you select the right bicycle helmet next time you're in the market for one. Just a bit of a plug for BBB. I really like BBB helmets. I've used, let me think now, I've used Bell, I've used Giro, and I've used BBB to my knowledge. I can't think if I've used any other brands. Generally, I used to buy Bell and Giro. I like the style of Giro, and I like the quality of Bell helmets. But now I have BBB, and they're fine. They're really good, actually. The rubber on this part of the webbing does come off after a couple of years, but the webbing is still fine, and it hasn't impacted the comfort of the helmet in any way. That's the only thing that's happened to this helmet since I've had it. The pads are still fine because I wash them regularly. The ratchety thing at the back still works, and yeah, the helmet's great. It's also got a really nice hard shell to it. So when you put it on stuff, it doesn't seem to scuff up as bad as some of the helmets that I've got. Some of the helmets, like I say, the European ones, when you tap them, they feel really flimsy, like the plastic layer on top is really thin. This feels quite sturdy, to be honest with you. It's a much better quality than the helmets I've had before. So yeah, very nice helmet. This one I recommend. It's pretty well vented for an aero helmet, but it looks fast. And it's not too heavy for an aero helmet as well. Generally speaking, aero helmets tend to be a lot heavier than this one. Like I say, it's quite stylish as well. I mean, I've accessorized it with a few reflectors, but apart from that, it's exactly how it comes in the box. There you go. Thank you very much for watching my video. Any comments, of course, leave them below. Do like, share, and subscribe with a friend if you can. Hit that notification bell for future videos. And as always, folks, whatever you're riding, wherever you're riding, whatever helmet you choose to ride with, please do stay safe, and I shall see you in the next video. Bye-bye.